Archetypalism. We should question everything, leave no stone unturned, no bias unchecked. So here's my question of my own theories. Firstly, one of the weakest arguments I've heard against archetypalism, the belief that the gods in some form are psychological blueprints passed down over time through instinct and culture, is that they cannot be worshipped. This is usually the fundamentalist argument. It's ridiculous. Anything can be worshipped. Valuing something is worship. Worship etymologically means to give worth. You can blow to an idea. You can give offerings and see it as purely symbolic. This obviously comes from a Vedic perspective. The second argument I hear is reductionism and erasure. Again, this comes from fundamentalists. Typically, this is from devotional, obsessed theological purists. Reductionism isn't bad. It's a way of understanding, examining pieces to then look at the whole. It's trying to find nuance. It's conflated with erasure, as though questioning deities would be impious. This too is a fallacious argument. We aren't unquestioning Abrahamics. Impiety, in their position, often come from Roman paganism. The Roman religion was tied to the state. Of course they wanted piety. It made you a loyal Roman nationalist. Hardly applicable to modern paganism, and definitely not applicable to heathenry. And I doubt that the gods wanted us to be unquestioning, and questioning gods doesn't reduce their power, authority, or importance. In fact, it can increase that importance. It can help you to understand them better. It is not erasure to try to understand something better. No, the flaw in archetypalism is that the gods aren't truly universal. They're personal. It's hard to look at shared cultures when it's not 100%. There are many threads showing a god may have started as one thing and ended up into two or more gods, or the inverse, that two or more became one. I'm currently examining Thor for a video, and he's a clear example. Heracles, Romanized Hercules, is the people's champ, carries a blunt instrument, and fights serpents that are manifestations of chaos. But Zeus carries the thunderbolt. Zeus, if you remember from my Tyr video, shares semantic center with Tyr. We'll go over that more in the upcoming Thor video. Set, in the Egyptian, was another one. A storm god that fought the chaos serpent Apophis. He eventually becomes a god of chaos, and Horus/Ra take over snake duties. Set is often the antagonist, rather than the people's champ. Those are examples of archetypal semantic centers changing with culture. But here's the thing. Archetypes are never one for one. There's always something different. And in some mythos, they just aren't there, or at least aren't prevalent. The problem with archetypes is it's difficult to prove across the board. I think my Scaldi video was a great example of that. Not every culture venerates the warrior woman. The Amazons of Greek lore were often the villains to be conquered. And we saw later Christian cultures vilifying the witch, something I'll be devoting a later video to. So much we extrapolate in the archetypes is vague theory and hints of maybe? Lastly, the Proto-Indo-Europeans are often the basis we jump off to examine the archetypes. The flaw here is that Proto-Indo-European is linguistic reconstruction, and their cultures, plural, span at least 1,000 years. Think about how much our cultures have changed over a millennium. Archetypal polytheism must come with skepticism. Any path should, really. But don't believe something just because you want to, and then develop theories and bias that fortifies it. That's the core of theological purist fundamentalists. Believe something because it fulfills your logical analysis and sapient diligence. Walk a path because it fulfills your emotional needs and spiritual requirements. Remember, we are the sum of our actions, and our actions follow thoughts. Thoughts are formed based on belief. It's up to you to guide yourself to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. Skull!